Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I saw Senzo here a minute ago. I'm going to steal his car analogy from this morning. So thank you, Senzo. So who would like a Ferrari? It's on offer. There's a few hands there. Good. But I'm not going to give you the keys. So what's the point? So bring that back to geospatial. What's the point of having it if you can't use it? And this is mainly around sort of Earth observation data. I'm going to keep Senzo's car theme going. So I don't know if anyone knows the Open Data Cube or heard of it. It's a sort of open source imagery database. Anyone heard of it? It sort of originated out of Australian government. It's now an open source project that people are using across the world. The one that's most relevant, that I hope people are beginning to hear of, is something called Digital Earth Africa. That's something that's being $18 million fund that's been put together between the Australians government and an American sort of philanthropic fund to make Earth observation data accessible for the whole continent. So, to Senzo's car, this is the fantastic engine. But if I put an engine on your desk, you wouldn't be able to use it. It hasn't got the car, the wheels, and everything that Senzo described in his analogy earlier. They're not there. So how can you actually make that engine useful to you? We all know imagery is very powerful. We know you can do lots of things with it, but you have to be an expert in the imagery, maybe to head in that direction. You also need to have a rather large computer, a rather large credit card account with Amazon or Azure to stick all that imagery in, and then you need to pay for the credits every time you kick off questions like show me all the water bodies in Africa. That's going to churn some of your credits. So what the Digital Earth Africa and the Open Data Cube people have done is said, look, well, we see this being useful. They launched something called the Africa Regional Data Cube up in Kenya last year. They said, this is working well, why don't we do it for the whole continent? So at Esri, we said, this is great. You just put a massive database out there full of analysis-ready imagery. How are people going to get to it? They said, oh, we're just focusing on getting the data ready, which is great. We need people to focus on that. That's fine. But what about the tools and so forth that people are going to use on it? At the same time at Esri, we've been working on a concept called Africa Geoportal. This is something that we see in our work globally, that there's lots of data out there that gets collected many, many times, used many times, put on a USB drive, shoved in a drawer, and forgotten about. And that might be I'm not picking on World Bank, but World Bank funded project for 3 years, go out and collect some land information data, great, end of those 3 years, money runs out, data stops being kept up to date. All the effort gets lost. Even if that data can go somewhere else, someone else can make use of it. So we wanted to support the idea of create once, use many times. Again, to the car, you want to make the engine once, so I don't want to make a new engine for every car, as in redesign the engine for every car, I just want to have it once. We also see the problem about sustainability. So if you do come to some of the development activities, they are funded by the UN, World Bank, African Union, African Development Bank, and so forth. They will put up a 3-year project. We've all seen the tenders. 3-year project for this. I need a solution for this problem. Here's the money. Please go get it done. End of that 3 years, inevitably, we'll probably carry on working, but the person looking after it will probably go, or the training program will stop, and then maybe a year after that, it begins to wobble because iOS is upgraded, and now the app doesn't work as well on the iPhone, so now people stop using it. Maybe 4 years, it's wobbling, 5 years, it's gone. So the commitment from Esri here, if people think about a PPP model, is that look, we make this technology anyway, so we'll commit to keeping the technology working if you use it. So this is making sure that these things that are put out there are accessible, but are also sustainable as well. They need to be simple. We heard this morning, the people in this morning's track here, about the simplicity. People are not GIS professionals needing to access these kind of things. Some examples I'll come on to in a minute around sort of flood data or deforestation or illegal mining. As a mining person, as a mining enforcement officer in the ministry, I don't need to be a GIS professional. I just want to know if there's been illegal mining or illegal clearance of forestry in my area. Don't need to be a GIS professional for that. So the idea of Africa Geoportal is to put some simple tools, learning and data in the hands of those that need them. Still a role for the GIS professional, not taking away from that. But this is allowing other people to come in and try out tools and learn. So what is this actually enabling? So I'm not going to do any live demos or anything like that, but there's 3 examples here of what the Digital Earth Africa imagery, which is your Landsats and your Sentinels, etc., all been looked after by someone else, all analysis ready. All we've done here is put the Esri technology on top, popped it inside Africa Geoportal. To get into Africa Geoportal, you only need a Facebook account or Google ID. The rest is all free. There's no money involved at all. So here you now have the ability for people to use that analysis-ready imagery that someone's focusing on keeping up to date with the Esri tools that we're making sure work, because that's our job to make the tools work. To put it all together now, you've got people looking at change detection on the surface. The one in the middle there is the current loading of the imagery and the various different view options you've got there. They're saying by the end of the year this will be Pan-Africa. And the third one there, I think, is doing analysis, time analysis over that, looking at the size of how Nairobi's grown by looking at the expansion of the building work, urban expansion. So again, that if you sat down as a GIS professional to do these tasks, you've had to have got the imagery, got a rather large database. There's 30 years of imagery in there, so it's gone through a whole time series analysis. I've had to have rendered that, maybe done it in desktop, got my answers together, created that, put it into a presentation of some sort and given it to my manager to make a decision. This is at people's fingertips now because we've broken down the supply chain. One person's looking after the data, one person is putting after technology, and all the end user needs to do is learn what they need to learn, make the decision they need to make. But what about other people? So that's just one person in a country looking at these things. People like identity, and from our point of view, people also like competition. So when we were talking about Africa Geoportal, very quickly people turned around and said, well, I don't mind being involved in this, but I want my Facebook page. I want my identity on there. So we said, okay, so how about this? A Facebook for GIS users in a continent. Africa Geoportal is the first of the geoportals. There's going to be others around the world. So now it's a community platform. People want to take ownership of this. So Esri said, okay, we'll step back. We'll make sure the technology works. You guys take ownership of it. It's still in transition in that sense, but the idea that's coming now is that sort of country pages. So the Africa Geoportal has a large amount of open data in there. Now we can have a Nigeria Geoportal. It's just a subset of that information. All the imagery we're just talking about, the population data that we procure, data that comes from partners like here and so forth, that's all in there for people to access it. They can start loading in their own national data, stuff that's relevant to that geography, and they can have an identity on it. So Africa Geoportal is the parent, Nigeria Geoportal is underneath that with their data in it. What's important to Nigeria? What's the hot topics around geospatial in Nigeria at the moment? In the same sense, African Development Bank, World Bank, they create open data and put it into a site that you have to download a CSV from, bring it back across your desktop, load it into a map, do some analysis, etc. Why do there have to be so many steps? Why can't we just have the World Bank data being federated into the Africa Geoportal? The African Development Bank's Open Data Highway is about to be federated into the Africa Geoportal. So now I come to one place, and it's not replicating the data, it's leaving it where it is. If you don't have hosting for it, then we'll host it. The idea being leave it where it's created, pull it together. So now I'm looking at my imagery. Maybe I've done that analysis and I've seen there's some illegal forestry. Now I'm going to go over the top and start saying, what's the population impacted by that? Well, I'm now planning something, I want to bring the weather feed in. You know, so the idea you can bring all this data together in one environment now, so it's all out there, but it was inaccessible. I had to go and get the data. I had to go and get some sort of GIS application. I had to go and learn how to use it. So what we tried to do here is bring together Africa Geoportal, so you've got the tools, the data, and the training in one place, free to access, for anyone who's working on geospatial challenges in the continent. So really, now you do have access to it. There is a point in using it. And the challenge from Esri's point of view now, with Africa Geoportal partnering in this particular example with Digital Earth Africa and the Data Cube technology, is how will you use it? So that's my challenge to you. africageoportal.com, sign up for an account, have a play, see what others are doing, become the GIS community, share your ideas, break down into silos. We'll have a health group, we'll have an environmental group, we'll have a forestry group. That will come in time. If you, as users, want that, then it will be done. We'll keep the platform running. People like Digital Earth Africa will keep the data coming, World Bank, Africa Development Bank, but it's the community to take this, take it forward, and solve problems with it. So, how will you use it? Thank you.